Right off. Okay, so starting with James, or left to right, can you give us your name, title, and where do you work?
Sure. My name is James Spinoza. I'm a security researcher on the malware team at Trustwave, SpiderLabs.
My name is David Berg. I'm a systems and network architect for an intellectual property consulting company called Tomo.
Krista Finninger. I'm on the governance, risk, and compliance side of security at Kellogg's.
My name is Richard Kim. I am a application security engineer at Kellogg's.
I'm Darren Grzedge. I'm a director at the consulting firm of KPMG.
Steve Van Dyke. I'm a security engineer at Kellogg.
I'm Maria Gudowitz. I'm director of IT security operations at Kellogg.
So again, can you tell me, so how long have you been there and what does your job entail?
Well, with the company, I'm going to be almost 3 years in October, but full-timer probably almost 2 years actually in June. My job is security research, so day-to-day I pretty much look into, I follow the latest security trends like RSS, like to read blogs and stay on top of the latest security trends for developing either IDS signatures or just staying, supporting our products that we have.
Let's go down the list. Okay, so my main responsibilities right now are I've been with Tomo a little over a year. They brought me in to do the complete infrastructure redesign, basically from maybe just like you were a startup. Is basically what we're starting. We have one domain sitting here, and they brought me in to build out a whole new environment side by side with the other. So that has its difficulties, I'll say that. And then IT management in Chicago and basically everything else, because the CTO works from home on the West Coast, so I handle everything IT related other than his job.
So I've been with Kellogg's for 10 years, and my primary function currently is security awareness out to all of our end users, which entails several different areas, and monitoring compliance with our policies.
I've been with Kellogg, I guess, just coming up on a year now. My main area is over all of the digital marketing properties, so that would be like Frosted Flakes, everything from dorky game sites like Pop-Tarts game to Kellogg Family Rewards or whatever it might be. So mainly web applications, so that's cool.
So I've been with KPMG for coming up on 6 years. I have about 15 in the industry. I'm a director. I lead our services nationally around Security Operations Center, and for us that means monitor, detect, analyze, respond. I work with our breach response team, which is a combination of our team and our forensics technology group. And I lead our services also now around security threat intelligence and security analytics, whatever that means.
I've been with Kellogg a year. My primary focus is log management and event correlation, working with SIMs or security analytics, as they call it. And then I act as a subject matter expert on any type of security project that comes along that we need to work with.
So I've been with Kellogg about 9 months, been in the industry for about 20 years. My group actually has two main focuses. We have global defense management, which would be more sort of your traditional management, configuration, optimization of perimeter security devices. So IPS, IDS, firewalls, those kinds of things. The other side is global threat response. So similar to the gentleman for KPMG, what we do is monitor all kinds of alerts and events and things around the globe, and then respond without response, containment. We also do some active sort of, we like to call it turning over rocks, looking behind, little dark corners to kind of see what's out in the wild and what we might be subject to, and then responding accordingly.
If you guys have questions at any time, feel free to ask. This is supposed to be a discussion, not a leeway and them type thing.
Right. Yeah, I have a question for the woman that just spoke. So, perimeter security. So it's your job to kind of manage like the computer infrastructure security, or what kind of?
So it would be specifically the security infrastructure. So when we talk about infrastructure, sometimes it's internal, right? So we might be talking about switches, routers, any of our internal systems, but specifically our team manages what's at the perimeter. So it's stuff that's keeping, events or bad stuff from coming in. So we would have the firewalls both at the perimeter as well as internally in our DMZs, our IPS or our prevention systems, our detection systems, all of that infrastructure. We run malware systems, so FireEye, probably see all the time, it's in the news every time there's a breach, it seems like FireEye mandate is somehow involved in monitoring or responding to that. So we've got FireEye devices. So really anything that we sort of traditionally think sits at the edge, not necessarily in the internal environment. The internal is generally managed by network and that infrastructure team.
So following up on that for you and for the whole panel, with the perimeter model kind of melting away with the bring your own devices and anything from anywhere, is there any strategy, anything that you're doing that you can share to respond to those kind of threats that has the perimeter kind of vanishing away?
I can sort of take that one a little bit, although I'm sure this esteemed panel can answer as well. So, right, there's always been the approach of defense in depth, right? So we always talk about the hard shell on the outside and then making sure the inside isn't too soft. So it's definitely about getting through, a series of security controls. That's always the challenge. Our focus right now is really at the endpoint, so very much at the user device, the laptop. So we're looking at different agents that can run on devices that we can put on there to help us manage, just to your point, to bring your own. We have a bring your own mobile program that's happening. So it's not laptops, but it's phones. So running MDM software, running different kind of, again, malware detection software where we can look at indicators of compromise. So it really is being able to adapt to that changing environment. Because you're right, I mean, mobile is definitely here to stay in our workforce. As the gentleman mentioned about a CTO that works remotely, and so there's just a lot of that kind of thing. So from our perspective, that's kind of how we're looking at it.
Maybe from an app dev perspective, we always use the term containerization when we talk about MDM or ADM or whatever you call it when you're starting to deploy corporate apps on your own phones. And so how do we put that in a container? What you begin to find is that there aren't really many true containers when you start looking at it and hacking and messing with it. But it's beginning to do stuff like outside of just the OWASP pipeline. You begin to tell people, okay, within your mobile app, you have to put those hooks in for the MDM application to begin to be able to manage that, the corporate data versus the personal data, and things like that. So, because you can't really just go to the App Store and just download whatever Adobe Acrobat. You expect that to be able to manage your container for you. You need to build those things in. So we're kind of at the cusp of that. It's a really good question. I mean, I think you're just, like Marie said, you're just trying to attack it in many different ways.
There's been a lot of recently some publicized hacking of major corporations. I'm just kind of curious about, and there are 4 members from Kellogg here. I'm just kind of curious what kind of what are you doing to kind of watch for that? Why do you think the companies like Target and Sony, what made them vulnerable, and what are you doing to try to prevent those kinds of attacks?
From my side of it, we run vendor risk assessments on all of our external vendors before they're authorized to become a Kellogg vendor. And that entails compliance with certain policies that Kellogg's has that we ask for evidence of. And so we do periodically audit them as well.
For mine, so part of what we have in our team, in our global threat response team, is called CSIRT, so the Critical Security Incident Response Team. So when an event will happen, we'll always try and see if we can pick up as much information as possible on what happened. How did they get in? What did they use? Maybe what was their motive? We try and do tabletops. We try and do simulations to see could we be subject to the same thing. Because I will tell you, and here a co-worker in the audience too, our board will ask those questions. Our board is very much engaged in what's happening in security with Kellogg. So they'll ask our CIO, who asks our SO, who asks all of us. And there's always a question, could Target happen to us? Could Home Depot happen to us? Could Anthem happen to us? And the realistic answer is, of course it can. Anybody that's motivated enough with the right tools, with the right money, will be able to make it happen. So we try and use those and look and see internally if we have weaknesses. To Chris's point, their vendor assessments, both Steve and Richard on the engineering side, there are a lot of vulnerability scans done continually to see if we have issues, penetration tests. So we try and expose what we can and plug that. Krista, like she said, runs our training and awareness, and that's a big thing, right? All of the phishing in that. So sometimes you can put all the devices up you want, and the user clicks on the wrong email, and we're on. So it's really multifaceted. There's no real sure way to say. In Target, for example, I mean, they were using FireEye technology. They had the security shops. And it's not a, it does cause some sleepless nights, when something like that happens, but that's kind of how we, as a team, try and look at those things happening and how we can get stronger. But we're very good, and our CISO is excellent, Stephen Young, about always making sure that our CIO and our board understand we are not foolproof. No one is. It really is potentially a matter of time. And so we don't want to ever set the expectation that it can't happen at Kellogg or KPMG or anybody else.
Yeah, and I think you hit an important point that doesn't get played up in the media. We focused a lot recently on attribution of these attacks, tracing everything back to China or certain crime workers or fraud rings and such. And I don't think that's the right question to be asking, is who perpetrated it. It's necessarily to the point that you got what allowed it to occur, and could it occur, happen to us. And it's great you guys have vulnerability management, like a full lifecycle program. It blows my mind, guys, that I still spend time with clients helping them to build a comprehensive vulnerability management program. And I don't mean to drop Nessus in and scan. I mean, it's pervasive across all tiers throughout the infrastructure. So whether it's app dev and SDLC, it's at the operating system level, it's at the middleware layer, database layer, all that, and bringing all that in. And realizing, I think the other problem is, you probably know in app devs, see a lot of this in vulnerability management too, as you scan your environment, you see 3 million vulnerabilities, which ones are most important? Right, and telling someone that they need to fix everything in the environment is probably not the right approach. It never has worked, and that's where a lot of people try to start. So reordering that based on the risk that they present to the organization, based on facts and evidence, to the point, how are the actors actually operating and what tools and experts are they using? Because not all these are 0 days, as much as we like to say it's a super sophisticated attack. I mean, basic commodities controls could have prevented a lot of this, if not got to the point that I think you guys get to, which is detection, right? So being able to detect it.
Okay. Any questions? Or?
Remaining on the cusp of what's going on in the media and the different innovations that are going on all the time, I would imagine that's taking tiresome after some time. How do you guys manage your work-life balance in relation to being on the edge?
Mine's easy. I'm a consultant. I just don't do I just choose not to do breach response, and we have other people answer the phone. So I'm out.
You really have to love what you do, and like this is our CISO is one of the best I've ever worked with. His view is, like, from work standpoint, you're there when you need to be there, and if you can leave early to go be with your family, go with your family. But if something happens at 2 a.m., you're there working until it's done. So there really is the idea of, like, I'm home now and I'm at work now. That doesn't exist. You're always connected. You're always working on something, or even like in your spare time, you're reading up on stuff.
I will say too that in that whole, I guess it's kind of like we're always on call kind of a deal. You do need to have a mental boundary. In sense, like for instance, you leave your bag in the car. You leave your laptop in your phone goes in with you, and that's your mental break. Maybe that's helpful. When I did things as a consultant, for me it was the plane. When I get off the plane, I'm done with work. I'm gonna answer the call if something comes up, but there's kind of that break, or maybe I'm gonna have my lab time because I like that. That's fun. And mess around with stuff and I'm at home. But it is a discipline a little bit, especially as you I don't know if everyone wants to do it, but as you get older and maybe start a family, it is going to be a discipline that you're going to have to say, okay, this is work time. This is, my version of play time, which is staring at computer screens, doing fun things, and this is family time. So it's just something you've got to do and decide what your boundaries, because you can get lost. You really can. I don't know about you as a researcher.
It's a little different on research. I think, for me, on the side that I work on with my team, we will support the incident response team. So a lot of times when they're in engagements and they hear, or they in a compromise, they find malware, they send it over to our team, and then we do the analysis and provide the results back to them. So I guess my world's a little different, where we don't actually support like a client directly, but we work with a team that does. And for me, I guess my work is really more about as it comes in. So besides that, just staying on top of the security, basically through blogs. That's pretty much what my work life is a little different than being a consultant.
And I'll say this, most most companies will let you work until you drop. You have to learn to speak up and let your boss or whoever you trust at work know, hey, I need to cut back a little bit. I need to take this day off. And as long as you communicate and you're working hard and you're doing your job, most of the time you can find that balance. You just have to, you just can't be timid. You have to let them know how you're feeling.
So what was the driving factor that motivated you to get into security?
I'll start because it was actually fun. When I was younger, when I first had my first computer and I was online, I met a group of people on the internet, which I didn't know. It was like Yahoo Messenger, and took a file from somebody that turned out to be a virus, and I thought it was neat, and started looking online about that, and it just kind of took me into a world that was so different that I'd never seen before, and that just kind of got me into it. And I went from there. So at a young age.
Mine started with networking, and then it was just a gradual evolution to security and pen testing and all of that. Just kind of all of it excites me, and I love it. So it just was a gradual progression.
Similar, very gradual progression. I started out actually deciding that out of college I did not want to program. I was too much of a people person. But she got the degree in computer science. And just by circumstance, I actually spent until about a year ago, I was in internal audit. So I would come in and audit the IT organization and looking for those, looking for the controls and risks that existed. And so it really was just a natural fit because they're very, very much related.
Yeah, I guess we'll go down the line. I started as an engineer, and I mean like an engineer. I was an industrial engineer, so it was really curiosity that got me here. I started off as an engineer, realized I didn't really like that, so I started doing IT stuff within that engineering thing. I started writing code, and then they said, hey, this guy's a pretty good programmer. So I started writing code, and then it was just curiosity. There's this whole wide world, CEH1 was out there, so I'm gonna sit for that exam and see if I can pass it, and I did. Started doing pen tests before it was cool. Maybe not, but yeah, and it was just a gradual evolution. I feel like it sometimes. So yeah, it was just curiosity that drove me to very serious.
Yeah, I think that's probably an overriding theme, right, for most of us. I mean, I like taking things apart. I'm also non-IT by background. I'm actually a chemical engineer by my first degree. So did that for a while. Unlike you, I actually liked it. I just had a chance to jump into IT 15 years ago. And I was lucky enough that I worked for a company that was pretty progressive. They were deploying an intrusion detection system for an online learning system they were trying to deploy. And there were 3 vendors. One ran on a CD-ROM, if that dates how long ago that was. And I think like James at the end, I was on the other side of that. I actually got to sit and watch people attack us. And these are on the Code Red and Ninja days, right? And then you also have the people who are out there trying various tools. And I got interested to learn what they knew that I didn't. So I actually flipped that around and got more into pen testing. I did that for a few thousand hours, and that burned itself out, and I do what I do today. So yeah, curiosity, I think, is the overriding thing.
I was in the military, working on radios. I got deployed to a corps level position, and they didn't have any radios, they had computers. So I had to learn how to work on computers, and the first thing I did with security was one of our contractors gave me a CD with packet captures and said find all the passwords. And that's kind of how I got interested in it.
So mine was, I guess, similar, a little bit different. I started in IT on the help desk. I made a massive career change. I was 20 years ago, I was a secretary, and I wanted to do something different. I always thought computers were cool, so went to school and got certifications, my Novell certification, my Microsoft certification. I was the most papered person in our office, but really had no hands-on skills. So started on the help desk, and then moved up to systems and network, and mine was really a target of opportunity. Our guy who ran firewalls and stuff said, I need a second, right? I'm always on call. I'm always the one working on this stuff. Who's interested? And I just jumped at the chance. I don't know, I didn't even give it a deliberate thought. I said, you know what, it's an opportunity. I learned about it, and it was the right place at the right time. I worked for the Department of Energy at the time, so there was a lot happening in security around the government space. So just happened to be in the right place. But it was really just taking the opportunity. I thought, I'm new to this. I really don't know a whole lot, so let me jump in. And it's really been very beneficial. And I've held different roles. I've been director of IT in a couple of different companies, so I've done the whole IT thing, running a team of 85 people from help desk all the way through network and security. But I really like the security specialty, and it's never been more in vogue than it is right now. So we're sort of like quasi rock stars up here. Quasi, I said. Didn't mean real rock stars.
While going into the security field and being unmotivated, what were some challenges that you faced?
I could definitely, from my perspective, I mean, going into security again is very exciting, but I always like to say security is you succeed big or you fail big. It's not a small stage. Again, kind of saying what I just said about how it's really visible right now. So those are some of the challenges, and you try and explain to people who really do want to hear it will never happen here, that it's going to happen here. And you do it in a way that makes sense and that helps them understand that they have to manage the risk in a way that makes sense, and also to put the budget behind it, because budget is always a challenge, right? It's always a challenge in IT, and it's certainly a challenge in security. So I think that's sort of one of the ones to try and educate your customers, being the board, the CIO, in some cases the CISO, not in ours, but in others, the importance of it and that they need to invest in it. I think that's a challenge. Sometimes you don't see the data for it, right?
I just have a quick question about that. So what happens when a client is hacked or penetrated? Like, what risk does that pose to Kellogg?
A client, you're saying like one of our partners, or
Yes.
It really depends. I mean, if there is that situation, so it depends on how we're connected to them. How are we working with them? So do we have sort of always on site to site with them, or how are they coming in? So how big a risk do they pose? But that is sort of an all hands on deck sort of thing. We'll bring in governance. What did the vendor assessment look like? What do we know about them? Anytime something like that happens, it literally is a CISO. We're calling it, we're sitting down, we're talking about what the risk might be. So we can get our hands around it, because again, those are one of those phone calls that the CISO is making to the CIO. So he knows, and then potentially to the CEO if there's an issue. So we're looking at that. The first step is obviously we're looking at containment. If we do find that we are at risk, something that we come through. Now we're talking about, are we taking them off? Are we disconnecting our connection? And I'm sure, again, our technical guys can definitely talk more about that. But I will tell you the thing that's always balanced with is the business impact. We lose millions of dollars a minute if we're not creating and packaging cornflakes. And so when we think about those two, it always has to be balanced against the risk of stopping the business part of it.
I know one of the other things we're looking at is brand name. Like that we could outsource, and we don't even know about it until like later on, where we outsource some data gathering to some third-party company, and they're using like shop@kellogg.com. We didn't know it's there, but it's there and it's got our name on it. They get breached. All of a sudden, it's our problem. Yeah, and we didn't have anything to do with it. We didn't even know it was there. So a 100-year-old brand can get destroyed really quickly without us even knowing it.
Yeah, so getting developers to care about the code, the security of the code. When I was leeway, the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems that I had was SQL injection. People can string concatenating their SQL code. One of the problems that if you look at the OWASP, top 10, what's always number 1 or number 2? SQL injection. Why is that? Thank God for things like OWASP, thank God for things like, CVEs and things like that can help raise awareness around that sort of stuff. But just getting people, I actually got into it a few years ago with a prof who was putting floating classes up and like putting string concatenated SQL. And I emailed him and I was like, dude, you're part of the problem, stop it. And he was like, leave me alone, I've got a PhD, I'm going to talk to you. But that's the constant battle. Because more often than not, it'll come down to something in code. Like it's a problem if you're coding securely from the beginning. It's hard to fix. It frustrates me to no end where people say we're always going to have SQL injection and we just need to.
So I guess from my perspective, I guess one of my biggest challenges is making security sound sexy to the end users and getting them to understand how they play a role in helping protect the company. Because you all think it's lovely, great, awesome, but when we're telling those end users that they need to follow these set of policies and don't share their passwords, etc., to them, I'm an impediment. So I'm just an annoyance. It's not something that they view as a good thing. So that's probably, from my perspective, one of my biggest challenges is getting them to truly understand the risk and how they really are vital to being able to help secure us.
And mine initially, I think, was slightly different. If you look at the years 2000, 2005, through that time period, it was hard to find a well-paying job, and by that I mean one where I'd be making more than I would as a chemical engineer, because security was kind of put on the back burner. And I think you made a good point, right? It's kind of front and center now, so there's potential to succeed big or fail big. And then I think my challenge after that is starting to work with clients. I flipped back and forth between consulting and industry, so I've been on both sides of that table. I think from a consulting perspective, early on when I was younger, I tried to be extremely technical, which is great because it gives you a good foundation, but it also makes you lose a little bit of that relevancy of how does this actually impact the business. So being able to bridge the gap between the technical and the business impact of what you're discussing is kind of interesting. And I'm lucky. I worked at Arthur Andersen and Protiviti. I had some really great mentors there who kind of held my hand during that period and said, here's why we do what we do and how we do it. So I learned a lot from them, which I took back to industry and now back to consulting. Now I think it's really, I think you also made this point about return on investment. So getting budget, how are you proving that your spend is effectively mitigating the risk? We're very subjective in talking about our reduction of risk based on controls, processes, and people, and what we're deploying for an organization. And I think we've got to get to a point, which hopefully we will, which I'm working on through security analytics, is to quantify the risk reduction based on changes in process, technology, or controls that are implemented or ineffective. And we're doing that a bunch of different ways. So hopefully we can change that and we'll actually have an impact, which also may affect ROI negatively if we show that we don't need as many people as we say we do, or they don't need to be as high paid as they are.
So a question I have is for, I guess, the non-management positions, whoever's not in that, how do you feel about, I guess, kind of moving up to a management position where you'll be doing less hands-on? Is that something you guys want to do? Or is it, you want to stay in a technical position, hands-on all the time?
I kind of see it's a natural progression, at least I see. Because at some point you get to high enough where you're like, I know what we need to do in the big picture as architecturally, but I don't have the power to actually implement any of it. I still have to, unfortunately, listen to the management and say where we're going with it. So at some point you're like, I want to be the guy to make those calls, so you do have to move up.
Doesn't mean you have to lose your hands on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's up to you and whether you make that as a career decision. We've recognized that recently at KPMG, where we now have a different track for folks that want to remain technical. You have a different role within the organization now. You have different metrics and different goals. Yes, you're captain director. You can't make it beyond that to the partner. You're not on partner track. But if you want to stay technical and still get paid really well, you can choose that route. It is difficult. I think everyone makes a career choice. Plus, then you get married, you have kids, and the last thing you want to do is deal with technical problems all day. You just want other people to deal with it, and you point out stuff. But maybe that's just me.
I have a question about, a lot of you mentioned that in security you either succeed big or fail big. Can you elaborate more on that? Why there's no
Well,
I certainly can. In my mind, again, this is sort of something I've been throwing around for a while, but again, because of this, there's just no, well, in the way that I think about it again now, because it's so visible and our wins are really big. So maybe we are, being attacked by a very well-known, hacker group, and we're able to fend off that attack. High fives around the room, our board is cheering, we're great, right? But then it's the one click of that gosh darn phishing email, right? We blocked 12,000 of them and the one got in. And now we get owned, and now we're in the press. And so that's what I'm saying is that there's no almost small wins. The small wins are internal, right? We did good with that phishing campaign, or all right, we're able to, remediate 25 vulnerabilities this month, right? But nobody cares about that. That's not the information that's really going to get the attention of the board or the CIO. But the big things do. So that's why I say the successes are big and the failures are big. Hence the CEO and CIO at Target lose their jobs, or those kinds of things. It just tends to be that there's every day you can open the newspaper and there's some sort of security related issue. It's really crazy now. So that's kind of what I was talking about that.
Or you end up losing a job, right? I mean, we used to do that. I spent more time doing breach response in the years past than I have more recently, but we used to sit in the room and I'd stand behind the CISO and pat him on the back and tell him it's okay. right? This happens to a lot of people. I have yet to this point witnessed this CISO being fired for being breached. What they haven't fired for is how they handled the breach. And I don't even know if that's true anymore, so I feel bad for telling that, because I think shortly after he lost his job. But it turns out it's how he handled the breach. He waited 6 weeks to call us and tried to handle it. No, I think that's the felt big component of it, right? I mean, you look at, there's some major executive management changes when you experience one of these large breaches, right? Target's probably a really good example of that. I'm waiting for Anthem. I think they keep the management intact until they get through remediation, and then the next thing is let's figure out how to move him out and someone else in, right? So
at the end of the day, how much does management stress to each one of you security? So at the end of the month, or your management meeting or whatever, how much weight do they put on you for security? Like each one of you, one from every company to answer.
I'll start. For research, as I mentioned, we have to make sure our customers are protected. So I feel it most whenever there are like 0 days out there that just you hear about, overnight, and then now you're scrambling to try to get protections out. So for me, that's the only time I really feel the pressure, because I'm responsible for making sure that we can deliver something timely, and that it works.
For me, it's every day. It's a constant fight, because I work directly under the CTO, so he has no security background, and that's my passion. And we're lacking in a lot of areas that we need to fix, and it's a constant battle between that and between getting the budget to fix it. And it's frustrating at times, and I'm slowly winning him over, so we're getting there.
I think in our case, and the rest of you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have very, very good support from both the CIO and the CISO. And I think it's been said on multiple occasions, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we'll be reached. So to your question on how much are we feeling that? Daily. I think we're in a constant state of monitoring and just trying our very best to detect and block.
Well, I get asked once a month from a particular manager for monthly accomplishments, which are important. I need to reply to that. But those reports go directly to our CIO and to our board. And if there's a breach or if there's a problem on anything in Kellogg, you can bet that our management is going to be very, very interested. We actually had to. It was kind of funny, and it's one of the only times I've ever seen this happen. We had to kick all the managers off a bridge once early on because they were just asking for status of this, getting in the way of the work. But that's how involved they are. So the pressure we feel is pretty much daily. If any screw gets loosened or anything like that in any of our protections, I take it personally. I flipped out on someone earlier this week. We get it a lot. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that because I don't really have an infrastructure to protect them. I'm more likely on the other side, helping executives, more likely the board, answer the questions about what are other organizations doing, or how has this certain type of incident or breach affected the organization, how has it shifted priorities, whether it's an IT priority or a security priority or what. But I'm going to change that, not if, but when, to when will we find out, right? Because I think we're all to a point in our, and I think it's a good message too. I mean, it's not doomsday, the sky's falling stuff, but an understanding that you can't prevent everything from occurring. At some point, that flips into being able to detect and then rapidly, get to contain the remediation to respond to that.
I think it's pretty much everything you do, every decision you make, every project you're on, you got to ask yourself, am I making this company more secure or allowing it to be less secure by allowing this project or by going in this direction?
I'm just going to add on because Richard brought up the manager's opinion for the monthly accomplishments as me. But I do want to say too that there is a lot of pressure. Obviously, what we do is very critical. As you know, you're smart. I think the way that we kind of lessen that pressure, though, is by making sure we're always communicating. So we don't ever want our CISO or our CIO to be blindsided. So we report the good things that we do, right? Hey, we caught something, or we did a phishing attack, we were able to get to it, right? Got in, we were able to contain it quickly, whatever we had to do. So we try and be very honest and realistic about the things we do. It's not all doomsday, but then it's not all roses either. It helps to make sure that they're protected. They understand. We do a lot to educate our CIO. The leadership team meets with him monthly so that he knows what's happening in security, so he can speak about it intelligently. And he's very intelligent. He's a great CIO as well. But I mean, again, I think we just balance that. If you get caught up in the pressure of it, it's like air traffic controller, and you can't do the job. You really have to sort of know it's going to happen. You know, when it happens, we detect and we contain, and then we try and recover as quickly as possible. Because that's the thing that business cares about. If we get breached, okay, but how quick are we going to get manufacturing back online and start getting boxes out of our plants? Right? And that's the point we were talking about with knowing the business. It can't be doomsday. We're going to be down and oh my God, get it addressed, get it fixed, get people back online. That's what they really want to hear. So I think it's about that confidence to be able to do that, just minimize the pressure.
Yeah, I think to your point, that's a great question, and that's an excellent point. Communication's got to be key, right? And so, good example. I can't speak from my experience with one of my clients. So, a major insurance client of mine had a CISO that would ask every day, "I read about this. I read about that. What are we doing about this?" And it was almost, if you read his emails, which I saw the copies of, it was almost being, you know, he was accusing, if I want to use that term loosely, I guess, the team of maybe not being on top of it, right? And in reality, they just weren't communicating that effectively back to him. So I actually came in and helped them figure out how to communicate with him. We formatted the types of reports he would get. We talked about the cadence. You get them weekly, you get them ad hoc, you get a state of the threat report on every quarter, which would rehash some of the highlights from what had happened in the previous quarter. So what did we detect? What did we block? How effective are our controls? That sort of thing. Got his sign off on it, and now his email tone has changed completely. And now his email tone is, "Hey, I saw this. I know you guys are on top of it, but," right? And I think that goes, the communication, that proactive communication goes a really long way.
As far as certifications go nowadays, do you guys
who invited this guy?
Do you guys feel like, I mean, they matter too much, or is it more just like experience moving up the ladder within the company or departments, like company to company?
Smartest guy I work with is a high school dropout. He has 0 certifications.
So
recruiters love him. If you want to get noticed on LinkedIn, or if you want to get recruiters or staffing people call you all day, I think it's okay. My view is a little bit different on certs. I know there's probably a counterpoint here, which is great. I mean, get the cert if it forced you to learn something you didn't know, and then you earn something out of it. I mean, I got my MCSA back in the day just to get certs, because I started collecting them at some point, and then I realized they don't really matter, because I run into the same people with the cert as me, and they can't explain what an OU in an Active Directory environment is. That's probably means that they went to brain dumps or whatever site was up back then and downloaded the test and just memorized the questions and one answer. So, someone has a counterpoint to this. I know.
Yeah, I think especially it is often put down as a requirement for a lot of our job postings. So the right certification, I think, is what makes the difference.
So I think you touched on something really important, and that's, and education in general has value in that it teaches you something that you did not know before. Okay, now you, okay, so if you're going to go and you're in your CISSP or whatever, I'm sure this state has one. You're going to go into it and you're going to be like, why am I studying this? A lot of it, but it's forcing you to do something that it's forcing you to go into an area maybe that you didn't know before. I mean, how many of you are going to care about physical security? I can't say honestly that I've used any of that time.
You should.
But it was something that you didn't know before, right? So that's the value of education. That's the value. If the cert has value, that's the value that a cert has. So as long as it makes you do that, I think they're a good thing. If you want to go and collect certs that just to get you the job, yeah, you're just going to get calls from a lot of recruiters stuff. But I don't think anyone on this panel necessarily connects a cert to having complete knowledge over everything in that cert. It just means that you know something about very wide swath of stuff.
I think one of my views with certs is, and it's kind of weird, but when I was a hiring manager, I'd like to have a guy with those couple certs, because that showed they were willing to play the game. If some guy came in and had no certs, that I don't believe on him, whatever, I usually wouldn't hire him just because I didn't think that they'd be a good fit with working with a lot of people and having to go through like stuff that we don't want to go through, being like when you have to work with a business. No one really wants to do the HR stuff or anything, but you have to. It's part of the business. If someone comes in and says, I don't agree with any of that stuff, I don't believe in it, it just shows a mentality that I didn't like.
I think your executives also like to see those type of stats back to the reporting aspect. I think a lot of executives at organizations want to know, not just from the security team perspective, but from other parts of their organization where certifications are relevant. They like to know the number of people that they have with X number of certifications, and it makes them feel good.
We actually have the opposite rule at KPMG. If you have more than 3, we call it BS. I'm being honest. We won't pay for more than 3. If you came into the firm fresh out of college, there's a set of certifications you're going to get. You can't get more than 3.
But I know, like I worked at IBM, they wanted to have more because then they could charge their clients for more.
Yeah.
Different views on consulting.
It is, but I would say too, though, kind of all that same thing. And I hold a lot of certs too. And back when I got my MCSE and my CNE, and again, and I'm doing this as a secretary, so I'm a great test taker. I will tell you that I had no experience in all paper. But back in that day, people were landing these high-paying jobs back then, maybe $75,000 a year with no experience, and only because they had certification. So I would tell you, having been a hiring manager for many years, it's not just one thing. Right? It's not just the undergrad, it's not just the cert, it's not just the experience. You really tend to find the best people that are multifaceted. Right? You get an undergrad or a graduate degree, that means you're a great project manager, you're goal oriented, you can get things done, you can work in teams, right? Because you all know how it is getting degrees. Same thing with certifications. I mean, they're all goals that you're attempting to get, so that tells me something about the person. So I think that they have a place. Do they have the top place? I wouldn't say that, but. And then to your point sort of the game, it's very true. I mean, call it a game, call it whatever it is. There are competitive advantages, right? All else being equal, if you have 2 people that have identical or near identical skill sets and everything else, and one has the cert, maybe it's the thing that gets you in the door. So I wouldn't write them off. To your point, I wouldn't, have the alphabet behind my name and just getting every possible cert that I can get. They really do have to mean something.
I'll say something. I graduated from the college a couple years ago, and for me, I guess when I got into security, I always kind of wondered if I should get a cert or not. Never really, well, naturally I'm bad at taking tests, so that's probably one reason why I didn't. But the other side, I thought as long as you don't think that having a cert is going to guarantee you a job or have that mentality that you could get in, that's my opinion. I think that they're fine to have, it doesn't hurt, but there are other ways, that you can stand out and shine on your resume. For example, I was very involved in CCDC and many other competitions, security club here at Paul. There are other things you can do in addition, to having that or not having a certification that can make you stand out from other, from your other candidates that are, so that's kind of my opinion. I still don't have a cert. I don't know that I will anytime soon, but I definitely don't, I get my sleep at night. That's what I'm trying to say.
I agree. If you get a cert and you just do a brain dump and get it, and then you just sit down with a CCNP or CCNA and they ask you questions in the interview and you know none of that, it doesn't make a difference. You need to learn that. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for the cert or to get a job, and then it's going to work out and you're going to benefit from it.
So going off CCDC, how many of you know what that is? So would you say that that's having a lot of outside competition experience, capture the flags, and like naturally and stuff like that? No, that'd be better than having a cert, and not forget college degree. I'm just talking about like a cert. I think more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I interview people, it lends more to their to their curiosity and to their passion for the field, right? Do they really truly enjoy what they're doing because they go out of their way to do those sorts of things, right? To read books, to better themselves or learn more about the field. That says a lot more to me than certs, right? So I think it goes to the story that you tell. I mean, you can have people come in and you ask them what's the last technical and non-technical book that you've read, right? Or what do you like to do for fun? And it's interesting to hear some of those responses, right? Because you can tell the people who just really, anyone who takes my class will tell you the same thing, right? If you're in it for the money and you really don't care about this, get out, go do something else because you're not going to be successful to be the mediocre firewall admin pushing the same damn button every day for 10 years, right? And if that's appealing, and it might be to some people, then sure, go for it. I don't think that's what we need. We're at negative unemployment or zero unemployment, which is not healthy. We have a lot of people, and to your point earlier about the certs and people getting high-paying jobs, and we wonder why IT is dysfunctional to this day. We hired a bunch of overpaid, underqualified individuals to generate or create these systems and architectures, which we're still dealing with.
I don't think it's less better or than having certification. Sorry, I don't think it's less better or more if you have certification than to do a competition. But I think there's a difference. For me, being in a competition, you also learn to work with others, your team, you communicate. You have all these other skills that you're kind of demonstrating, being kind of live versus my opinion, taking an exam. But that's not because I don't have one. It's just that's what I think. And naturally, when I used to interview, when I first graduated. A lot of the times I had conversations about CCDC, and my interview turned into, basically how was your CCDC? What did you do? How did you handle this or that? So it just helped, in my personal opinion, helped me land a job. Well, at the time it was an internship, but it helped turn into a job.
So what do you expect from upcoming security professionals?
We could talk about curiosity. I think things like CCDC, like capture the flags, are important. They're great lead-in to are you actually interested in this, or are you just kind of I heard there's a lot of money and they get unemployment, so I'm going to go into security. Curiosity. I would much rather take a person who was really, really curious about it than a guy who walked in the door with a bunch of certs. And I think at one point in my career, we hired a guy not because he had everything on a resume, but because he had gone and he had set up WebGo, and he was like, yeah, I'm just trying to mess with it. I've never done it before, but I kind of wanted to try some, direct attacks on a vulnerable app and stuff like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, we argue, I think, when we hire people, because the KPMG and all the other big four do the same thing. They recruit from Northwestern and Notre Dame, Indiana, and not so much heavily from DePaul, because it's perceived that it's really hard for us to pull for all of our disciplines, accounting, audit, all the rest of the other junk that we do that is not important to me. It's interesting. We've often talked, do you take the person that's more technical and did the CCDC stuff, or do you take someone with a general MIS foundational background that understands the business side of it and teach them the technical? And I'll be honest, we've been successful both ways, right? We've also failed both ways. We've taken technical people that just can't, after a certain point in their career, get integrated with the business side of it and understand, that component. We got business people who just can't pick the technical up because they don't have the right technical foundation. For me, perfect candidate, a blend of both of those, but I'll take the technical over the business. And that's my personal opinion. I know there's other parts of our practice that would probably be the opposite, but for me and what I do, that's more my need.
I would say humility.
Insecurity?
Humility. Don't be afraid to be wrong. You're not always going to be the expert, but develop those networks and have that path so you can know where to go to get the answer.
Thank God someone said it.
Thank you.
It said that data scientists are considered the sexiest job in the 21st century, and Google is saying that it would be statisticians. I'm not in security, so looking at you guys, I would say that this is kind of the coolest job kind of out there because it's on the cusp. How do you guys feel about this? I feel like you all are kind of underreported unless you're really screwing up.
No, security analytics is definitely on the, everyone's kind of dipping their toe in the water on it right now, right? But that gets into statistics, predictive modeling, and then eventually into neural networks. So it's some of the research being done in that area is kind of interesting. So being able to feed a system a lot of data and not necessarily have to tell it how to cluster that data, but it figures that out on its own through artificial intelligence is pretty interesting. There's a lot of, we have a master's degree in predictive analytics here, but the downside is that the computational one doesn't focus on the stuff that I actually want it to focus on. We have a business, a marketing, and then the predictive computing, I think it's called, is the last kind of minor track within it. It's a very, very interesting field where we don't have enough people to do it. In fact, we can't hire enough people to do it, so we have to buy a company that already did it, just to buy the people, because we can't hire them fast enough. And yes, they're overpaid.
And so I'm doing some software development, and I've done a bit with web development. I've been using, just been using tools that say it already has security built in. Do you think that's a good assurance?
Wait, are you writing code? Are you writing code? You're writing code?
Yes, I'm writing.
Oh yeah, then I didn't hear the developer.
So, okay, Java's a type-safe application, as people say, right? But underneath Java, C++, and there's actually ways to drop buffer overflows into Java code. You wouldn't see it, and it's only on certain version of Java, true. But just because they say we have a secure framework, I mean, don't trust that. If you're writing, it's even worse if you're using like one of these damn WYSIWYGs, I mean, Joomla or anything like that out there. But if you're writing code, take the time to learn the craft to write code. Take the time to learn to write it securely. Because when you go out there and you try to convince the developer, when you're actually doing this, you're saying, hey, let me teach you how to code securely, then who the heck are you? You know, you have to show them. You have to be able to show them this is vulnerable code, this is unvulnerable code. This is all you have to do. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a developer and shown them parameterized SQL versus unparameterized SQL. So that's all I have to do. It's like, yeah, that's all you have to do. It's totally built into the language. Just do that, and you'll be fine. Oh, okay, I can do that. But you have to show them. You know, it's not like to show me the money thing, because otherwise they're not going to listen to you, right? And if you haven't taken the discipline to do that at the beginning. And by the way, let me just say something to all of you in this room. All of you have like incredible resources available to you. I mean, there's stuff that like I think I would have killed for back in the day. Just the databases and reams and papers and things like that you could learn. And so take advantage of all of that. Really, learning is like a lifetime thing. And never be the smartest guy in the room. And say that a lot. You don't want to be the smartest guy. When you go to a company interview, if you get the sense that you're the smartest guy, they're not going to grow. You're not going to learn. Sorry, that was.
Or if you think you are, don't try to prove it. If you're the smartest person in the room, people will know it without you actually having to go out of your way to prove it. So that, to the humility point, it's huge. I run into these guys with the clients all the time. We'll never hire them, but some of our clients have these guys who are just they know everything, and whatever you say is absolutely wrong. I might be wrong, but.
Okay. Going off like the programming, how much knowledge in scripting should someone in security know? Would you say that knowledge is important?
Why are you asking me a question you already know the answer to?
I think that depends on what area of security you're concentrating on. Because for the stuff that I'm managing, it's less. Although I did have the Bay Write Me script this past summer. But for the most part, the things that I'm managing, it's not really a requirement.
Was it secure?
Was his script secure?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I think too, it's good to have some knowledge of any. I mean, we're smart people. You can look at a Perl script and go online and try and figure out what it's doing, right? And having some base knowledge of that is useful. Obviously, for me, got to know a little bit more, but it's going to help you in your job too. I mean, if you're going to go and grab through an entire giant 3 terabyte file, being able to do that in 15 minutes of writing a script as opposed to, giving it to people.
I wasn't having him go for data. He was automating a process for me.
I think that's key. If you want to learn, I think you should know how to script. I think automating processes, understanding what's running. If you're doing an evaluation on a server, you're trying to understand what this developer is doing here, what this person's doing here. Understanding what it's doing and what the implications are key. And then just understanding how to script in a lot of ways will help you understand, a lot of code that, just knowing how to program, in Python or whatever. You can look at code and you can understand it a lot easier.
That's actually what led me. Absolutely important. So if you take a class with me, you already know this. But when I started my career, I was an IT admin. Windows 2000 had just come out. Active Directory was brand new. Shortly after, Microsoft had VBScript, right? And so I realized I was spending 30 hours a week actually doing in a 40-hour-a-week job, doing IT admin job, things that I took a VB script class and learned that I could script, and I literally had about 15 minutes worth of work a week. So I took a lot of the things that I was doing manually and basically just ran it scripted and run them. Yes, in production network, and that's what I tested it too. It's real data. But and I will tell you, that's what kind of let me get into security, because that freed up a ton of my time to go build test labs and buy the first Hacking Exposed book and read it cover to cover, try everything in it. So, but even after that, now our automation, especially you guys probably see it on the cert side, we're starting to see some of our more advanced clients, tech companies, West Coast, where they're starting to automate a lot of their response, or maybe even some of the data gathering. So we have a host and endpoint in our environment that's implicated, suspected to have malware. What an analyst used to do manually, they're now taking and scripting, running that automatically, pulling the data back, and now some of them are actually getting into parsing it and making a decision based on that. So some interesting possibilities if you have a good scripting background. And Python's better than Perl. Sorry.
And if nothing else, one thing I guess is learning how to code, and it's like problem solving. So I always say this, but I think it's a good skill to have, because it's, you learn how to solve problems through a computer, but you're still learning how to solve problems, and that applies for pretty much any job.
JP? No, JP's not. No. Stop taking the master's program students. Stop making them take Java, and send them to 2 quarters of scripting language instead. I don't use Java whatsoever. If we had 2 quarters of Python, or it was Python and Perl or something else, what are you shaking your head about?
Java's pointless.
Yeah, it's pointless. I thought you were disagreeing with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so our time is up, but we can take, if anyone has one more question.
If you have time for one more question, what do you do to keep yourself current on the field from a personal perspective?
You haven't seen my house.
I have a lab. Yeah, have a lab. When you go out and you get a job, take your first paycheck, buy a nice i7, or hopefully you already all have it at home. Download VMware, start deploying something. Go to AWS for $60 a month. You can get some nice stuff out there. You can actually get security devices. You can deploy a IDS, you can deploy an IPS, and you can put a WAF up there. You can throw a web up there. Start doing that stuff and just get interested in it. When Hartley came out, we were all like, okay, how can we weaponize this? So try it. And again, it goes back to that curiosity. Curious about it. Curious about the world. Podcasts, read. Have stuff on your feedlies or whatever it might be. Whatever you can trust.
James has a good blog. Right. I think it's learning from the other people who are willing to share with other people.
That's just the user groups.
User groups. You guys already know this. You have, as a student of DePaul, you have access to Gartner, which is an extremely expensive proposition for people who aren't currently with the university. If you're interested in kind of trends in the field, they're analysts, yes. Some of it's vendor centric. Sure, you can say they're paid under the table with great people hired, great. It's still an opinion, right? You don't have to agree with it. It's just one that's out there for debate. There's a ton of security conferences. ThoughtCon, which is here in Chicago, which is relatively inexpensive for $150. If you can't make it to Black Hat or DEF CON, or if you drink too much one night and don't actually make it to the talk, or we don't see you the rest of the time, and may have thought you died somewhere. DerbyCon in Louisville. It's a quick drive. It's still $150. A lot of those same talks are repeated that were at DEF CON. We'll be there as well. And the nice thing about it is it runs after DEF CON does, so it's probably the second time that person's presenting. So it's usually a better presentation the second time around. If you don't want to go down there, what's his name, Adrian Crenshaw, IRD, he posts all the videos online, right? So if you, I sound like an angry security curmudgeon, but you guys have way more resources. I had a single book in IRC when I started, right? You have everything under the sun in this cool site called Google. So.
One thing I want to add too, so all the technical stuff is really great, but I'd say don't lose sight of looking at some of the stories that might be more mainstream, like in the mainstream press, CNN, or whatever it might be, when there's a security issue, because you're going to want to learn the business side of it. Whether you become a manager or go into leadership or stay in the technical side is great. I mean, then you can decide on that track, but don't lose sight, because more and more we're talking about money being diverted or put towards security controls, that ROI and everything, but you've got to speak to business, right? Because those leaders, I don't care what the game is, you are going to be talking to boards or CIOs or CEOs, and so you've got to tie it back to what it means to the business. We cannot, the sky is falling and Target got hacked. Yes, we all know that. They're going to care what it means to them. So I would say make sure to read those kinds of stories too. Sometimes it gives you a little insight. You know, after Target happened, they talked about the fact that they didn't have a CISO. And what did that mean? Their CIO was bearing all of it, right? That's Jacob's second 30 months. All of, you think about a CIO as operational responsibility. A CISO has security responsibility. Sometimes those are at odds. But there were experts that were saying, well, maybe that was a reason. They didn't have a person that was running their security program at the top. But it's good to know those winds of change, right, and what's happening, because those are important things to know about security. So don't lose sight of sort of the management crap stuff. It's important to know how businesses see security and kind of what's happening in that space. Right? My piece.
And I'll say this, you guys have the biggest pool of information in each other, because everybody in here has different interests. And if you want to learn about something and somebody has that interest, go to them, talk to them, ask them what they're doing, ask them how they're learning it, try to, get into a project with them, create a lab, create something, and have fun with it. Because you're all here to learn. Otherwise, you wouldn't be paying $40,000.
So that's all the time we have, and if anyone can give all of you guys stick around in case anyone has questions. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, I gotta go.